Hello and welcome to the podcast. My name is Byron.
My name is Henri.
And
today we're going to be asking the question, what was the hardest thing you had to learn this past year? So what was it for you? What was the hardest thing you had to learn this past year?
the hardest thing I had to learn was how to understand myself more, I guess. Because I guess
similar to mine, suspiciously similar to mine. Yeah, so go on.
Yeah, I guess in the times before this past year, I guess it's almost I'm trying to avoid myself, and that was kind of my tactic.
That's a good way of putting it. That's what a lot of people do, actually.
Yeah. And so I would, instead of sitting alone and being with my thoughts, I would do something else. So I would, listen to music or play some video games, watch a TV show, do something else. Anything else to get my brain thinking about other things instead of, me and what's going on in my life. Yeah, so learning. Sorry, yeah?
I was going to ask, how was that hard for you to learn that?
It was hard because it was something that I had been doing for a long time, like since forever. So I had to unlearn some things first before I could learn how to understand myself. So it was kind of like a two-step thing. Yeah, so I had to change some things about myself before I could really learn about myself. Yeah.
I think that's a great way to put it, is unlearning, because that's what you're really doing. You've developed these habits, you've conditioned yourself to have certain habits to cope, and now unlearning those things, meaning going back to square one, which is a space of possibility. And how was that difficult exactly? What was difficult about that process?
Well, I mean, it's like such a important thing, I guess, or such a thing that's like really close to me or my heart, my soul, or whatever. So it was very difficult because I had two sides of me. One side that wants to grow and be better, and the other side that, is afraid of whatever that may entail. So I have two sides of myself clashing, and I know which side is correct in this case, but it's almost like a tendency to fall back into what I know instead of trying to break the boundaries and explore myself more, understand myself more.
Right. You said that you knew that one side was correct and the other was not, right? Or at least one side was more correct than the other. Who is that knows that?
Wait, what do you mean, who is that?
Well, you said I know what that is. But what I'm asking is, who is that that's speaking? Who is that knows that one is better than the other? And how do you know?
Well, I suppose they're both me. So, I mean, like both sides of one side telling me to, be better and explore new things, try new things, learn more, and one side telling me to just kind of slip back and stay to myself and, be places where I feel safe, I guess. I suppose they're both part of me, but in this case, I was leaning too far towards the being safe side, and so I knew that my other side was unbalanced. I need to rebalance them more. Yeah.
And I've heard you talk about that also, like something about learning to be uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Or being okay with being uncomfortable is sort of like restoring that balance where you were too much in safety. So now you need to introduce a little bit more growth, which takes a little bit of discomfort in the process. Would you say that's accurate?
Yeah. I mean, I think growth always comes from putting yourself out there and discomfort.
When you say putting yourself out there, what are some of the ways you've done that this past year?
I don't know. I don't think I've done that much, to be honest. I think
that's okay, right? It doesn't have to be, because when you say that, it's a metaphor. It's a metaphor of placing yourself in front of other people to be observed, right? I think that's what it generally means. But I think it also means placing yourself under your own observation.
Yeah.
Because that is uncomfortable, to be observing your habits and the things that you're doing that maybe you've held judgment against in the past. Like you said, you know that one side is more correct. And facing that tension and facing the part of you that you've judged for a long time, that's sort of putting yourself under your own critique, right? Your own analysis.
Yeah.
So I would say that you probably have done a lot of that, at least from my conversations with you, right?
I suppose, that's true. If you're critiquing yourself, then yes, I have critiqued myself a lot. But like, as with other people, I guess not much, but that's okay.
Right. I mean, me neither, but that's fine. Well, what would you say are the biggest, I don't want to say flaws, because you don't have flaws.
That's right, baby.
No, you're literally perfect the way you are. No, but seriously, like we don't really have flaws. We just have perceived flaws because society tells us something is wrong. And so we should feel a certain way about it. But what are some of the biggest parts of yourself that you've been scared to touch?
Well, for a long time, it was, well, actually two things for a long time. The first one was how I looked. So just like being too chubby or you know, being made fun of from other kids and like, you know, lower school. Well, not much really lower school, but middle school mostly. And like early, maybe freshman year or so.
Yeah.
So that I didn't, you know, I was just down on myself all the time for. And then also actually, when I was a kid, singing was a very like I wouldn't do it. I mean, not in front of other people. I would love to sing, and I love to, you know, I think it's a lot of fun doing it by myself. And, you know, I mean, I've been singing for a long ass time, but not as like a thing, but you know. And I just remember, like I wanted to be good, but I wanted to, like the first time I sung in front of people, I wanted it to be good enough, or like be so good that they were like very impressed. Right. And if it wasn't that, then I would be disappointed in myself. So I just never sung in front of people.
Right.
You know?
I know that feeling.
Yeah. So that took me a long time to actually start singing in front of people, because it was so important to me as a kid, like singing was.
I see. So singing was so important to you that you were afraid that if you sung and people didn't really notice, it would mean that what was important to you wasn't actually all that important in reality.
Or it was not something to be, or it wasn't meant to be that important because I wasn't that good, you know?
Right.
Yeah. Which I think I'm pretty decent at singing.
Yeah, I love when you remember when we did Baby.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought your singing was great in that one. So, and with your looks, is that something you've had to deal with over the past year, or has that just been in general?
I think not the past year as much. I think maybe 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago probably, is when I really like dealt with it. Like, as I really like made a decision, like, okay, I think I'm gonna change, you know. I don't want to look like this anymore. And by that time, it was more, I know people always say don't change for others, you got to change for yourself. And at that time, it was to change, it was not to change for others, it was to change for myself. Because I wanted to be able to look in the mirror and be proud of me, and be proud of what I've accomplished and what I've done. And I just wasn't up until that point, because I was just constantly disappointed in myself, because I knew that I could do better, but I was just, I never followed through. Yeah. And many times before, like 2 years ago, when I like actually started getting more fit, I had tried, like I'd be like, okay, this summer I'm gonna get super fit or something. And like, I'm sure everyone has stories like this too. And I would end up just not doing anything. Like, I would just get lazy.
Yeah.
And I knew that I could be better than that, and so I'd always be disappointed in myself.
Yeah, that's a vicious cycle.
Yeah.
Has there been any part of yourself this past year in specific that has that you've sort of had to confront when you were spending time alone with your thoughts? Yeah, maybe. Yeah, a little bit. But I think going back to the my body image, I just want to say one more thing on that, is that like right now, if I start to see myself like kind of falling into a downward slope or something, if I see myself, okay, I've been really lazy recently, then it's not like a mental health thing, it's not like I get down on myself. It's just like, okay, like, what are you doing, Baen? You gotta pick up your shit now, like, come on. And then I just kind of do it, It's not a big cycle or a big deal anymore, because I know I'm able to like accomplish whatever my goal is, because I've done it before. Yeah. Because before you would tell yourself that, but you wouldn't do it. But
Yeah.
now you tell yourself that and you do it.
Yeah. Yeah. I know I'm able to follow through with goals I set for myself now.
Right. I think that's great. Actually, I haven't heard you talk about that, but I think that's very true, is the ability to trust yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because if you aren't able to trust yourself, which I can totally resonate to telling yourself you're going to accomplish something and you just end up not doing it, not necessarily because you intended, just maybe you got caught up in other things, you were stressed about something, so your brain wasn't prioritizing whatever you said you wanted to do. And then you end up not doing it, and you start not trusting yourself over time. And I mean, going into college, you want to, at the very least, be able to trust yourself, surely.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you can't trust yourself, then no amount of external praise is going to help you. That's something that you have to mend by yourself, by doing the little things.
People always say that like college is the time to like discover yourself and to, understand more about yourself.
Yeah.
I think, yes, that almost definitely is true. But also, I think this gap year has been very useful for us, because kind of half gap year for me, but basically gap year. Because it's, we've allowed ourselves to, I don't know, maybe let go a little bit, in terms of us holding, like just the way we deal with things, I guess, yeah, yep. Where we kind of internalize everything. So to let go of that a little bit has allowed us to understand ourselves better, I think, which I think is probably a pretty good thing, considering we're about to go to college.
That's right.
So I think understanding yourself is probably a good idea when you're about to move into a new area like that, and new experiences.
I just wanted to say, you mentioned how people say college is the time to discover yourself, find yourself. And I've definitely heard that, and I think that's one of the saddest things ever, because you're paying an institution for you to do internal work that you can be doing when you're sitting on the floor in your bedroom. And people are normalizing it. People are normalizing it. They're saying college, even though I'm going to college to get the degree, they're like, explicit about that. I'm going to college to get the job I want, to get the money I want, to please my parents so I don't have to feel insecure anymore. But at the same time, they're saying college is the time to discover myself, to discover who I really am, discover what I really want. And and I feel like the culture has normalized it to the point where people go to college and use that as an excuse to then party and have a bunch of sexual relationships with people. And in the process of trying to find themselves, they're just reliving the same cycles of coping with the stress that they face in academics. So I think I totally agree with you that the gap year was so helpful for both of us, because, and I knew this going into the gap year during senior year. That's why I wanted to take it, because I'm not going to an institution that I'm paying for with an unstable, broken internal environment. I mean, no matter what environment you're placed into, if your internal environment is not stable, you're going to suffer. It doesn't matter whether you're in your bedroom or at a college institution. You're not going to have a good time, because the work needs to be done to heal yourself first.
Mm-hmm.
It's like trying to walk with a sprained ankle. The more you walk, the worse it's going to get, until you finally take a break and let yourself heal first.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with you. I do think that you have to, fix yourself before you can actually like properly enjoy a new experience, or any experience really. The one thing I think that you said about colleges, and you said that, your main thing was that you don't actually explore yourself, or what was it saying? College is a place where you learn yourself, or learn about yourself. Something like that.
I don't know. Discover yourself.
Yeah, discover yourself. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, something like that.
I understand there's a little bit of a contradiction in there, because if you're going to college to get a degree and get a job and, I don't know, get your dream job or something. Or actually, I think most people go to college, undecided for their major. Yeah. So, I mean, I don't really get that, because if you're going to college then at that point, you're going to college just to go to college, I think, if you're undecided. Well, I guess you can also experience new things in college that make you decide. Yeah. But I don't know. It feels almost like a waste of money to me if you go in undecided, because then it's like the point of going to college is to get a degree so you can get your dream job, right? And if you don't know your dream job before you go to college, then what are you doing in college,
Right, exactly.
Unless it's for the social side, but then that's a lot of fucking money for socializing. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, I mean, depends on what college you're going to as well, but yeah.
So that was my point earlier. But I think you summarized it nicely, which is basically if you don't know why you're going to college, you shouldn't be spending money on that, And then, like at TAS, unfortunately, that's not the case. It's just the norm that you go to college, because that's what a good child will do, right? That's what a good kid does. But I think one exception to your rule of you should not, well, generally speaking, you shouldn't go in undecided, is I'm actually going in undecided to my college. But that's only because my college is unique in that it's interdisciplinary, meaning that they focus on the fact that everything is connected. All the fields are connected, because in reality they are, right? And as part of my degree, I can combine fields of my choice. And I know that there's a lot of experiences at my college, like that are nature-based, that are ecological-based, that I'm really interested in. And I simply haven't had the opportunity to experience those things. But I know that's the direction I'm going. So I can have faith, I can have trust that I will experience things that will be incredible new experiences. And I don't need to even make a decision on what I want to study. I can simply simply synthesize things I'm already interested in as part of my degree. Because the point of the degree for me is not in order to get a specific dream job, in order to get, like jump through the hoops. It's not about jumping through the hoops for me. So
I think that's a good way of putting it. Like jumping through the hoops. I think a lot of people, it is about jumping through the hoops. Right. And personally, I don't agree with that. I don't think that's necessarily like, the correct way, in quotation marks, I guess. Because if you're going to college just to get that degree so you can have your dream job, I feel like, sure, you might spend 4 to however many years in college and maybe you will get that degree and maybe you will get that dream job, but like, bruh, that's like 4+ years just to get that degree, just so you can get the, oh my god. Like you could do that in a different, actually recently too, degrees are, well, I guess it completely depends on the field, but like if you're trying to be a lawyer, you got to go to college. But like if you're trying to be an artist or something, or like what I'm doing, like a game developer, if you have the portfolio and the work to back it up, I mean, sure, the degree is helpful, but my opinion, it ain't worth the 4 years, Yeah. Well, I guess it depends. It depends, but I think most colleges are too expensive for it to be worth it.
Yeah, I think that's good analysis.
Or just the education side, because the social side of college, I think, is going to be very good. I think that personally, that is the more important reason to go to college, in my opinion, than
for the connections.
Well, for in my scenario, or for me, I guess, going to college, or the social side of going to college is a bigger reason for me to go than getting my degree, I guess.
Yeah. And actually, going back to how you talked about, if you're a lawyer, you have to go to law school. Actually, the tides are changing where, a lot of corporate jobs, the companies they place less and less importance on your college degree. They care more and more about, can you think? And I'm pretty sure there are also online options for completing university and like getting university credits online.
Yeah.
So it's not even like you need to go to a physical university anymore. Like slowly people are realizing that what they value, because the whole point of school is to produce valuable people, and people are realizing that college actually doesn't produce valuable people as much as they say they do. And so they are putting less emphasis on the degree and more emphasis on, are you a valuable person? And there are ways to become valuable that don't include college.
Yeah, and that's a good way of putting it.
Yeah, I think the good news is I think the tide is changing just based on my like fly on the wall view of the world, of which I have very little experience of like the actual work world. But I think that it's changing to a point where you can make yourself valuable in ways that don't involve spending a bunch of money at an institution that is just getting unnecessarily expensive anyway, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, I think for this arguments don't really work in other countries, but in the States they work for sure, because the college tuition is so expensive in the States.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
In other like countries, going to college, well, in some countries it's free. Yeah. In other countries it's basically nothing. So then going to college is just a very good idea in general.
Yeah.
So that's a great point.
I like how you said that going to college is almost like a way to boost your value, almost. It's like you can increase your value in other ways, and you can possibly get more value out of other things, but going to college is a relatively stable and consistent way to boost your value.
That's right.
Yeah.
And that's why cultures historically tell their kids to get educated. They
Mm-hmm.
mandate it because they know that the the percentages are changing. But let me see if I can articulate this. Basically, like going to college is a higher probability of making you a valuable person than you taking the risk of not going
Yeah.
and somehow discovering how to become a valuable person, I think.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Yeah, so the parents, I mean, like in Taiwanese culture, my experience is the parents just make that decision for the child because they know the child can't work that out for themselves. The parents have a better idea, so they don't give you an option. Yeah. But I mean, like I said, those chances are changing as people realize how college is not producing the valuable people as consistently anymore. Like, especially in America, people will go for the social life, but in some colleges, it's just party and no academics. And then what do?
Well, I
haven't gone
mean,
to college.
there's still academics.
There's still academics, but it's like you're not really going and getting your money's worth,
I suppose if you're going to college for the reason of partying, then I suppose
it's probably an excellent choice. Yeah,
I suppose you're getting your money's worth.
Yeah.
If you're going there to party, then I guess
that's right.
Yeah, depends on what your
assumption is-
priorities are, I guess.
The assumption I'm making is that you're going there to study, to jump through the hoops, or to at least learn and just expand your knowledge. Yeah.
Yeah. I think there's, especially nowadays, like college is a way to, because how parents always say, oh, you get your education, you got to get an education, which I agree with. Yeah. An education is extremely good. It is crazy the difference between, like, okay, not to come off like a dick, but this is just what I've heard from some of the TAS
Byron's
kids.
not a dick, guys. Byron's not.
Thank you. From some of the TAS kids that have moved to American local schools, like I've heard them say that the kids there, they just seem like they're stupid. And obviously they're not stupid. It's just their education is not as good as a TAS education.
Right, exactly.
And the things that they say and they believe versus a TAS student who has a very, I think most TAS students, when they hear something, it's, they become analytical about it almost. Like they'll understand that that could not, there's a possibility that is not true, Whereas I think most like local schools in the States, that isn't taught, to be like skeptical about things. I think they're more willing to just kind of believe whoever they like, like being an idol or like a celebrity in the States is a much bigger thing than it is in Taiwan and at TS, or type of American school. Yep.
For sure. Definitely. I think that's a great example that you shared of TAS kids who go to local schools in the U.S. I would say though that recently I've learned about education, just thinking about what education is. It's empowerment. Like you said, it's crazy what it can do for you. It's like building muscle. You can just do more. But it's also important that you make sure what you identify with is appropriate. Because if you identify with, let's say, the human race against nature, is it the uneducated people or is it the educated people that cause the most destruction in this world? It's the educated people. Because the educated people who have identified themselves with something that leads to discrimination and prejudice and fighting and war, the educated people are the ones who cause damage, So although it is empowerment, there are certain things that are more fundamental than education that need to be established, I think. And during the gap year, we're both realizing this, we're unlearning things, right? Because, you can imagine like with you struggling to feel proud of yourself, feel proud of your body, right? Like you can imagine how some people go their entire lives like that.
Mm-hmm.
And some people develop their body and they become bodybuilders, or have an extreme strength after years and years of training at the gym, and they still feel terrible about themselves, and they don't feel proud when they look in the mirror. And that's what I mean when strength is a kind of empowerment, just like education, except it's for the body, not for the mind. But if you're not centered within yourself, if you haven't identified with the completeness of who you are, if you've identified with something that is inadequate, then you will spend the rest of your life, or at least a very long time, empowering yourself in the wrong direction and causing more destruction and for yourself and for others, Yeah, so I think definitely there's fundamental things that need to be done before you even consider education, which is,
I think,
what I'm learning now.
What you said about the educated causing more damage than the uneducated, I think that is only true if the educated are in the minority. If there are less educated than uneducated, then they can kind of lead the uneducated people into doing their bidding almost. But if more people are educated, they understand that they can't, like their thinking will be more, I guess, refined, so they won't follow someone just based off the things they say, Like
That's
what I'm
really interesting, actually.
What I mean is, like, if you think of a politician as being educated, then whatever they say can sway the uneducated, let's say average person in America, much easier, because they sound like they're smart, or they sound like they know what they're talking about, so you just kind of believe them. And if everyone is more educated, if you raise the standard of education higher, then I don't think that is true anymore. Then I think the educated or the uneducated would do more damage, I guess, than the educated, because at that point everyone becomes smarter and they know more about everything, I guess, or know more about whatever they're learning about,
I think that's a really good point, because there is an assumption that where the educated people do the most damage is that humans are a resource, and if you can manipulate humans without them understanding that they're being manipulated, then you can use humans as an incredibly powerful resource, like in corporations or organizations. But I think you're right that if people reach a level of understanding where they can't be swayed, then humans are no longer a free resource for the educated people to prey upon. But I do think that there is a place for uneducation, like unlearning things, like you talked about. Like,
but
that
I don't know if I would call that
education.
Okay, that's a form of education. Okay.
Yeah, like a form of self-education, but we wouldn't say that's formal education,
It's not formal education, but I think by the definition of education, it is, right? Because you're
right. It's a kind of empowerment.
It's just no one really sees it that way, but that's what it is.
Yeah.
Because in that way, I would still think that you're not. I wouldn't call that like an uneducated person, I guess, if you were to teach yourself to unlearn something about yourself, I would still call that education.
Because it's taught, it's not discovered.
Because you're
saying?
Well, either way, discovered or taught, you're still learning new things and more things. You're not the ability to unlearn something is something that you have to learn. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So right. Either way, it's still adding to your knowledge instead of subtracting away from it. I don't really know if you can subtract knowledge.
Well, it depends on how we define knowledge, because the education system as we knows it mistakes knowledge for memory.
Yeah.
So if we think that knowledge is memory, then you will likely always remember somewhere in your brain or your body the things that you've been told to remember. But if we talk about knowledge as a skill, skill is also a form of memory. I guess if we talk about knowledge as experience, for example, you can't experience a breakup. You can read about a breakup, you can watch videos about a breakup, but you don't know what a breakup is. It's a different kind of knowledge when you experience something.
Sure.
Yeah.
Like I guess more wisdom than knowledge.
You
maybe.
could call that wisdom.
Yeah.
You could call that wisdom. But I think knowledge is we mistake knowledge for memory. So, yeah, I don't know. In that case, I don't think you can really forget anything that you know or anything that you learn to memorize.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I guess I wasn't really thinking about like memorizing stuff. I was thinking more like, you know, if what you were saying with experiencing like a big breakup or something, you're never gonna forget that breakup, and you're never gonna forget what you learned from that breakup or what changed you when that breakup happened, or how you changed when that breakup happened. I mean, you know, like I think that kind of knowledge or that kind of wisdom stays with you for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And I don't think you can be, or you can de-educate, is that a word? I don't know. De-educate yourself from experiences like that, because I think they stay with you forever. Basically what I'm saying is just go out there and experience things, people. You'll become wiser, and you'll be a quote-unquote better human being because of it.
Well, I think we have to refine that statement slightly based on what you experienced, which is there you can go out there or you can go in there and experience things.
Sure. Yes. Just experience new things. They will always teach you something. Right. You always learn something from a new experience.
Absolutely. So what are well, I guess we already talked about it. I was going to ask you, what new experiences have you had over the gap year with yourself?
With myself.
Like, for example, was there a moment when you saw something in yourself that you had been telling yourself, or like investigating deeper layers of yourself that you hadn't seen before but were always there?
You cut out a bit, but I'm pretty sure I understood your question. Yes. Okay, so one time pretty recently, I think I've already told you about this, but I guess I won't name names. I will not name names because I don't think they'll like it if I name names. So I'll just say that my ex, okay, I was hanging out at her house, and this is like, I don't know, 3 weeks ago, maybe, something like that.
Okay.
And when she left, when she wanted me to stay longer to just chill or whatever, but I had things to do. And so I decided that I'm going to leave instead of sitting around here and hanging out, because, I got stuff to do. And I suppose that surprised myself a little bit because of that. Because before it was always like, oh, she wants to hang out. Of course, let's hang out, I'm down to hang out because I want to get closer to you as a person or whatever. But now I was like, I got shit to do. I would like to hang out, but I got stuff to do, so I got to go. As before, I'd be like, I'll just find some other time to do that thing so I can hang out, So prioritizing myself and my own goals over hanging out and chilling with other people, I guess. That was a switch that I didn't expect would happen in me, and it did, and I surprised myself a little bit when I did that. Yeah.
You told me about that. That was very cool. Very cool.
How about you? Anything?
Anything that surprised me?
Yeah, do you have anything like that? I mean, not even necessarily surprised you. It could just be something that you learned, or some new thing that you learned about yourself that you maybe didn't know was there before.
Yeah. I think I've learned many things. One thing I learned was, I've learned many things.
Yes.
One thing I learned was this idea of, well, I just thought of something else and now I'm all mixed up. This idea of inadequacy and realizing how deeply I had absorbed cultural messages about inadequacy, especially when it comes to loving another person. So I know, and just thinking back through my life, I've noticed messages in songs, for example, in movies. I'll explain those in a second, but the reason why people absorb these things is because with songs and movies, with entertainment, in America, entertainment has become our culture. We've erased everything that came before, all the history, and now entertainment is our culture. And when something is your culture, you don't really question it. You sort of just watch it and you take it to be something of the greater ones, like the celebrities, the idols, the songwriters, the movie producers. They're kind of gods in America.
Mm-hmm.
And when you watch and when you're entertained by their music and the movies, they make arguments, but as a child, you can't tell the difference between an argument and a truth. Like going back to the question of education and how, TAS kind of teaches you to think critically about these things. But a lot of times as a child, even at TAS, you still sort of absorb things. So the messages that a lot of movies and songs I noticed had on me was, in a lot of movies, it'd be like, I can't live without you,
Okay, yeah.
And in songs, it would be, I'm in love with your body, Ed Sheeran's greatest hit, literally like billions of views on YouTube, and the song is about I'm in love with your body. That's the lyric, right? And there's a lot of stuff like this about sexuality and being in love with somebody and then breaking up with somebody and like, I fucking hate you, like having a lot of pent up resentment against people after you break up. And over the gap year, because I broke up with somebody at the beginning of the gap year, so I've spent a lot of this year processing that breakup. And in processing that breakup, I've noticed how much of this cultural messages I've absorbed of I can't live without you, I'm in love with your body. And as children, I guess as a child, I sort of just saw these songs. I knew something was wrong with them. I was always making fun of girls for listening to these stupid pop songs about love, about superficial love, And because I knew something was wrong with them, but unknowingly I had done what I most feared, which was absorb those very messages. And those messages had told me that this is how love looks. This is what love looks like, is being obsessed with somebody, especially their body, and having anger and resentment against them after the breakup. And I knew all of this was wrong, and it just took me a few months to finally sift through that and realize this was coming from the entertainment that we hold so high in our regards, that we just mindlessly consume. But maybe I'm more sensitive to listening to lyrics. I think it's possible to listen to a song without without hearing the lyrics. But for me, I guess I'm more sensitive to that. I just absorbed more of it, and it manifested itself more in my behavior and thoughts, and than maybe most people.
I think that like I think there's a decent like split, I think, between artists that write their own stuff and artists that get other people to write it. But I think, I guess more specifically what I'm talking about is artists that write their own stuff. They're usually, they're telling their story or their perspective. And because people like the music and they enjoy listening to it, I think people that resonate with the lyrics almost want to become like that idol or like that person that they're listening to, and they might like adapt some of their own thinking into thinking like this artist or whatever they're listening to or whatever they're looking at or anything like that. They might adapt their the artist's thoughts as their own, which I don't know if that's right or wrong. I just think that's kind of how it works, because I think if you have an artist like well, maybe Michael Jackson is not the best, because he, but like he has a song with like what is it, We Are the World or something, or what is it, I don't know, but it's something like that where it's a very encouraging song that is about like uniting everyone together in the world and spreading love like that. I think that is probably good to spread around, like adapting that thinking is probably good. But maybe some other types of thinking in songs aren't so good. But I mean, who the fuck am I to tell you not to listen to a song or to change what you listen to because I think the message is not so good, I think a lot of people just want to listen to music that they relate to.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And it just so happens that a lot of people have been feeling a lot of resentment, a lot of disconnection, and that comes across in our pop music. The music that literally is like the defining music of our culture is the music with these kinds of messages. And when that happens, it has a ripple effect, because the people who once listened to that, now they elevate it to the top charts. Now people who don't even know what that feels like, maybe because they're too young or they haven't experienced it yet, those people are absorbing those messages. And maybe that can have harmful effects, but it can go the other way too. Maybe there can be a surge of positive music that happens, and suddenly the opposite effect happens. Maybe it's just a cyclical.
I think that songs that like a breakup song will never go out of style just because it's so relatable. Like going through a breakup, I mean, almost everyone goes through a breakup at least once in their life. So almost everyone can relate to it in some way, shape, or form, which is why I think those songs are always
I think that's a good point.
They'll always be like, popular. And I think that like stuff that's relatable to everyone, I don't think that's more of a, or it's not like if the artist is making a song like that, I don't think that changes people's minds as much. I think those types of songs are more relatable to everyone, so everyone listens to them, and then they go shoot up the charts because everyone relates to this music. And of course, if the music or song sounds good, then that obviously helps.
Right, exactly.
I think that more like, I guess what I'm thinking more maybe could be like rap music, where some rappers will be talking about some pretty bad stuff, like encouraging some sexism or racism, or encouraging, things that you probably don't want to encourage. Maybe stuff like that, But then again, a lot of people that really like that music can relate to that music. And also it sounds dope. So, it sounds hype. So.
Yeah. And I think this goes back to when I was talking about how it's important to have a solid identity before you empower yourself with education and stuff like that. It's the same thing applies here. If you're not centered, you'll be an open gate for all sorts of information to flood in, the good and the filth, right? And what I'm observing is in America, a lot of kids don't have an appropriate identity. They're all identified with their outer image primarily, and maybe their thoughts and political opinions. Or yeah, basically. And so this kind of identity is sort of inappropriate because your life revolves around that, but everything else is sort of an open door to defining who you are, because those aren't just the only parts of you. There's a lot of other parts of you, but if you don't define them yourself, then whatever you absorb from the people that you look up to, that becomes who you are. What I'm observing is a lot of people don't feel like individuals. They feel like, people who look a little bit different, but actually a lot of them say the same things. They have the same ways of speaking. I mean, even at TAS, you can hear like a lot of the kids, they say the same things. It's like sheesh and
Dude,
same memes.
that's kind of
the same ways, bruh, all this sort of stuff. And that,
bruh.
I think that happens because we're never taught to identify ourselves appropriately.
And we're never taught how to how to be ourselves, I guess. Sorry, I said that we're never really taught how to be ourselves. No one's taught us how to explore who we are, and
yeah,
that kind of education is not really taught.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And so we let our entertainment define us, which is, well, you just have a bunch of people who look and sound and think alike. And no wonder everybody's disconnected from each other, because they're disconnected from themselves. And that's, this past gap year has been so useful, at least for me, probably for you too, in reconnecting with ourselves and feeling like individuals again, with our own unique experiences, stuff like that.
I agree with you, but also I don't think it's like entertainment is that much to blame. Like I'm sure entertainment like plays a role, but I think that everything plays a role. I don't think entertainment is the like the main culprit. If
You're right. I do think it's a main. I wouldn't say it's the only culprit. There's definitely all sorts of factors involved, like you said, but it is a significant part of American life, from my observation. I mean, just hearing what people talk about, like sports, like movies, like, I mean, at Hot Pot, this is the case. The stories with your friends, a large portion of the conversation is just dedicated to entertainment, which is not to say that that's right or wrong, but if you don't have an identity established, then this is where this kind of echo chamber comes from, of people just spreading and cycling these messages, especially young people. I think my observations mostly come from observing kids at TAS and seeing how they interact with each other.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, I mean, entertainment definitely is a role much bigger in the States than here, I would say. But yeah, because like I feel like if you're some kid growing up in the town in the middle of Alabama or something,
right,
I think
your life is just different.
You're like, yeah, and I think that entertainment is that much more important to you because there ain't much to do out there. Whereas we grew up in a highly populated or densely populated city, so there's a lot to do and there's a lot to see and there's a lot of sounds and a lot of things constantly changing and a lot of people to meet and a lot of different experiences to be had in a city versus growing up out in the middle of nowhere where you think for the the only thing you have for entertainment is turn on your TV, turn on your computer, or go to a movie or something. There isn't much else to do.
Well, it's interesting because I remember when we went over for your birthday, we were talking about stress, like me, you, and your parents. And then you were talking about how each person perceives the stress differently, even though objectively it's different.
Yeah.
I think that actually applies here. Like just from my suspicion, because I haven't gone to a remote, farm village, so I don't know what that life is like. But I would suspect that those people don't feel the same level of stimulation that we do. So their systems are not tuned like ours because we're used to a lot of stimulation. So naturally, we require more stimulation to feel the same. But a lot of movies, going back to entertainment, but like my experience of those, those like more remote places is that the community is a sort of entertainment because they're not constantly bombarded with sensations all the time. So every interaction, even a conversation with another person, that's what makes their day special. That's the basis of their life. I think they don't simply feel bored all the time, I guess is my point.
Well,
that's what I mean.
I know you're.
I don't know.
Yeah. I know what you're saying, but I think yes, that's true for maybe 50 years ago, But now that like technology is so accessible and people can have, people can get on social media in literally 2 seconds, or any other entertainment platform. When you're out in the middle of nowhere and you don't got much to do, you're probably going to go on social media, YouTube, a video game or something like that, and then you instantly have entertainment. And then you kind of, I assume people end up spending a lot of time was on their phone and, different devices because that's the entertainment that they have, and there isn't much else to do. I think that's what it's true now. That's a great point. But maybe back in the past when that wasn't an option and you had to go and outside and actually experience things and talk with people, then I think what you're saying is true.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. Definitely, when you have access to technology, a lot of things shift in your, in your brain and your mind.
Because your world is all of a sudden opened so much more as soon as you have the internet. Yeah.
And all of a sudden you feel limited whenever you turn your screen off.
Yeah. Also, everything that we've said, take it with a grain of salt. Both of us have not lived in the U.S. for more than like 2 months at a time. So,
of course, yeah. See, we're like the.
This is all guessing.
Armchair philosophers.
Yeah.
We're watching the world from our screens.
Hands clean.
Yeah. We're watching the world from our sitting on our beds and our chairs, watching our screens, watching America, and we're just like, yep, you know, it's a tragedy.
It's a tragedy.
And of course, there's a lot of beautiful people, amazing people in America who actually have their own traditions, their own cultures. We didn't mention a word about those people, but they exist.
Yes, and just because we didn't say something doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. And also, I'm 19, he's 18, but we're both very young kids and we don't know everything.
Yes.
Yeah. So everything that we said could have been wrong, we don't know.
We should just start every
podcast. Start every podcast with that.
Hey guys, we're 18 and 19 years old. We've lived in Taiwan our lives. Just, cut us some slack.
We don't know what the fuck we're talking about, okay? This is just our experience.
Yep.
I think this is a good place to end it.
Yeah, that was fun.
All right. Hope you guys enjoyed listening to the podcast, and we'll see you guys in the next episode.